week, maybe 4 week now, backyard project at my house. It started, kind of the disaster happened when we went on vacation. I told you that a few weeks ago. And so we have, since fixing all the things that broke, we've now been kind of on a remodel, if you will, of our backyard. And so it started out with my wife saying the play set, which we've had for 20 plus years, wooden big play set for all of our kids who are no longer 5 and 6 years old. And it just completely deteriorated, and it's not safe, and nobody could play on it. She said, you gotta take that, you gotta get rid of that. It's gotta come down. So that came down, and then we decided, well, if we're gonna take that down, we're gonna move the trampoline over where it was. We've got to move the brickwork that I laid down 18 years ago. We're gonna move the brickwork all out to create a new yard. Then we've got the dogs. We got to put a dog fence up, and it's just been this very long. All the sprinklers have to be moved because we're changing everything, and everything's got to be changed. So it's kind of been a long project, and everything was going pretty well until one morning my wife got up and in the dark, it was getting light, and she got up and went into the kitchen, and she starts screaming, "There's a scorpion in the house!" Now, we've been in this house for 18, 19 years. I've had one scorpion over that period of time. We got rid of it, and that's been it. So we haven't had scorpions it's been 10 years since we had one. So we'll go out there, kill the scorpion. Okay, we got it. And I'll spray the house. So we sprayed the house, the inside, outside. I get a phone call at work later in the afternoon, a text actually. "There's another scorpion in the house." We come home, we spray the house, we do all the stuff. I go inside, outside. Every day for about 4 days, I had scorpions popping up in my house. And it was with grandkids and babies. As my wife walks into the house, in and out, and then there's a scorpion in the house. So this is war. We have been on war. I got a phone call. She said, "I'm going to Flagstaff. I'm leaving the scorpion house." And she did. She went up for the day. There was an event happening. She went up and she says, "When I get back," So, I mean, I've got stuff everywhere. I put down the diatomaceous earth. I've got that around the outside of the house, up against the wall. I've got it in the trees. I've got it on the grass. I've got it off the side. I put poison down in the grass. I've got stuff everywhere. You do not want to be a bug and be in my house. It is a kill zone. I mean, that's kind of where we are. This is war. We are in a series that we've been doing with you over the last several weeks, taking a look at transitions. And this morning, we've come to that place. If you've got your Bibles, we're going to be in Deuteronomy chapter 7. As we have been following, kind of going through the stories of Israel in the early time and watching this transition thing happen with Moses and Joshua. And we've come to this point in the story where Israel is on the edge of going in to conquer the land. And this is war. War is about to break out. This is where it's going to start happening. And so in our series, that's where we're headed, and the transitions that we're doing, and just got another week here of this. And our Pastor Don, is here with us, and he's just begun this process of transitioning with us. And figuring out, where things are and who's involved with what and who's responsible for what and what the processes are for doing things and getting things done. And we as a church, FCBC, is in the middle of a transition. It's a big transition. So I titled the message this morning, and you've got kind of an outline in your bulletin. You can follow along. I titled the message, Taking New Land. Taking New Land. And so the context is, Israel is getting instructions as they prepare to cross over the Jordan and conquer the promised land. It's time. All right, let's start with verse 1, and I'm going to give you the blanks as we go along here. But verse 1 starts this part of the story. It says, when the Lord your God brings you into the land you are entering to possess and drives out before you many nations, the Hittites, Girgashites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, 7 nations larger and stronger than you. All right, here's the first part of taking new land. First thing you need to do is face reality. Face reality. The reality is Israel is going in to occupy a land that is, the people are bigger and stronger. There are 7 nations he lists in this area. 7 nations. By the way, the area, you can kind of, if I'm a visual kind of person, so if you can imagine, if you want to know how big was this area that they were going in to conquer, if you can go from get in your mind, Flagstaff to Tucson, that's how long it was. And it was kind of a narrow swath. It goes, if you were to compare it from Buckeye to Fountain Hills, that big of a swath. That's the land that they're going to conquer. 260 some miles long, 71 miles wide, and there are 7 nations in there who are bigger and stronger than they are. They've got walled cities, they've got resources, they've got armies, they've got supplies, they've got water, they've got alliances, they've got all kinds of things, and they've already, remember when we read earlier a couple weeks ago, we talked about what happened. They came back with the report earlier, you may remember, the 40 years earlier, there are really big people in there. Really big. They called them, giants in the land. This is kind of gives you a little sense of what they're getting. This is reality. You're going to war, and on the outside, this is what it's really going to be. Be ready, be prepared, get ready to face reality. We all think here's the funny part. We all think we're invincible until we run into someone who's a little more invincible than we are. You ever gone to the gym and seen some, and you thought, man, this person, or maybe you think, he's a pretty good-sized guy. You walk in, and these guys are huge, humongous. I don't know if I should bring this up right now. Did you watch the ASU game? I watched a part of it. They did a little spot in there, if you watched it, on the fullback for San Diego State. He is a big boy. 6'4", 245 pounds. But the story is he came there as a quarterback at 6'4", 225 pounds. They said, we like you, but we think we'd like to try you somewhere else. He is a beast. A quarterback who became a fullback. He's the blocking back for the guy who ran up and down the field on us all day long. We all think we're big and bad and invincible until we come to the reality of, there are bigger people around. The hurricane, and they did a spot this last week right after the first hurricane, and Richard Branson, you know the name, billionaire, he owns one of the islands down in the Caribbean. And before the hurricane hit, they did a little promo of him standing out saying he was going to hunker down and ride it out. It got destroyed. It doesn't matter how many billions you got. It got wiped out, his island. His house survived. He hunkered down, he said, in his wine cellar. That's where he said he hunkered down in. His people, they survived. But it's bad. Wiped out. It doesn't matter. You need to face reality. It's not going to be just nice and Israel, get ready. This is war. You're going in to conquer the land. There are enemies in the land. There's 7 nations in there. They're bigger and badder than you've ever seen. This is not good on the surface. Get ready. But whenever we're getting ready to take new land in our lives, we need to face reality. This is probably going to be long, hard, and ugly. The enemy is bigger and stronger than we think. This is not going to be one little battle and I'm victorious and I don't have to fight that battle again. Woohoo! It's not going to be like that. Face reality. If you want to take new land, it's going to be war. What realities do you need to face in your life? Are you prepared to be all in, prepared to do whatever it takes? Yes, God is going to win the battle. When you read the text, yes, God is going to win the battle. No, He is not going to just hand it to you. You're going to have to fight for it. FCBC is in an exciting place in the life, in its life as a church. God is going to do some great things in the months and years to come, but it isn't going to be done easily or quickly. You're going to have to be committed to it. Get after it on an ongoing basis and be willing to do whatever it takes. If you're going to take new land, you have to face reality. That's part of it. Second thing, look at verse 2. Verses 2 to 6. It says, "And when the Lord your God has delivered them over to you and you have defeated them, then you must destroy them totally. Make no treaty with them and show them no mercy. Do not intermarry with them. Do not give your daughters to their sons or take their daughters for your sons, for they will turn your sons away from following me to serve other gods. And the Lord's anger will burn against you, and he will quickly destroy you. This is what you are to do to them. Break down their altars, smash their sacred stones, cut down the Asherah poles, and burn their idols in the fire. For you are a people holy to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you out of all the peoples of the face of the earth to be His people, His treasured possession." I said in your outline, if you're going to taking new land involves make no treaty. He tells them, make no treaties. Israel is supposed to destroy everything connected to the false gods of the land and the corrupt culture. He says, because if you don't do that, it is going to infiltrate your people and destroy you. You are to make no exceptions, no treaties, no compromises. There are not to be any reminders of the former culture and the pagan gods. Get rid of all of it. All of it. You remember the phrase, out of sight, out of mind? You don't want to be looking at those idols every day. You don't want to be going to the temples. You don't want to be seeing the stuff. You just get rid of all of it. Because if you have to look at it every day, it's going to suck you back in, and you are not going to want to be there. If you're on a strict diet, do you keep the ice cream in the freezer and the cookies in the pantry? Do you? Do you make 5 dozen of your favorite cookies just so everybody else in the house can eat them? Or spend several days preparing everybody's favorite fattening food so they can have it in the refrigerator for dinner every night? No, no, no. Not if you're going to hold to your eating plan. You break out the fruits and veggies. Ever try to stop smoking? Did you keep a carton of cigarettes and a lighter up on the shelf as a memento? No. Try to stop drinking, and do you keep a whiskey bottle up on the counter as a memory? No. He says you can't live with it. Keep it in front of you all the time. You've got to get rid of it all. Make no treaties. Make no compromises. Do not entertain it. When we're attempting to take new land, we cannot give any room to sin. Can't make room for it. We used to have the phrase in the old war times, they used to talk about giving quarter. Talk about giving someone quarter. Make no quarter. In other words, make no room. Don't Don't make any room for the enemy. Don't give them any place. Don't keep them. Don't feed them. Don't house them. Don't make any room for the enemy. If you make room for the enemy, they will come back and infiltrate you and destroy you. Make no room. Make no treaties. There is no such thing as, well, a little compromise won't hurt me. Yes, it will. If you're going to take new land, make no treaties. Face reality, make no treaties. Skip over to verse 17 and 19 as he goes down through the story. Here's what he says in verse 17. You may say to yourselves, these nations are stronger than we are. How can we drive them out? But do not be afraid of them. Remember well what the Lord your God did to Pharaoh and to all Egypt. You saw with your own eyes the great trials, the miraculous signs and wonders, the mighty hand and outstretched arm with which the Lord your God brought you out. The Lord your God will do the same to all the peoples you now fear. The third thing involved in taking new land is to remember. The blank is remember well. He tells them, you know, it hasn't been that long. Do you remember Pharaoh? Remember that guy? He says to him. Remember what I did with him, how I handled Pharaoh? How we handled slavery, that you were enslaved in Egypt. Do you remember the Red Sea, the parting of the Red Sea? Do you remember the pillar of fire at night, the cloud by day? Do you remember? And he goes, do you remember all of the trials and the signs and the wonders? Do you remember all those things that God did for you? They had a tendency to have a short memory. Sound familiar? We have a tendency to have short memories. He says, remember well. If you've watched some of the news and the pieces on after the flooding and after the folks come through, I was struck this last week as I was watching some of the news coverage, and as they're bringing people out and down the streets in with boats and rafts and anyways, and they're airlifting people and they're doing all kinds of things to get them out of the flooding. And invariably, and they interview the people, and they'll interview them afterwards. And the people, and I saw it over and over and over again. And they all, I say all of them, a whole bunch of them said, "Man, we just want to thank God for saving us, for sending the rescuers to us. We want to thank God that our neighbors came, that the police came, that the firemen came, that the rescuers came. Thank God." And I kept thinking, how? In the middle of losing everything, first words out of their mouth, we want to thank God for saving our lives. Wow. Remember well what God has done in your life. It is very easy to have a short memory when you're in the middle of a crisis. It's very easy to say, yeah, I know what God did back then, but right now, I need God to do this. This is not God's first crisis. This is not God's first disaster. This is not God's first problem in your life. He's been involved and engaged and doing and saving and active in your life for a long time. This is not a new thing. God will show up again. Remember well. If you're going to take new ground, you're going to take new land, remember well, trust His love, trust His mercy and His power. God did it before, He'll do it again. That's what it's going to take if you're going to take new land. He tells the people of Israel, remember well, because it's time to face reality. It's time to move in. Time to make no treaties. Let me give you the last. Look at verses 21 to 23. He says to them, do not be terrified by them, for the Lord your God who is among you is a great and awesome God. The Lord your God will drive out those nations before you little by little. You will not be allowed to eliminate them all at once, or the wild animals will multiply around you. But the Lord your God will deliver them over to you, throwing them into great confusion until they are destroyed. I said in your outline that the last piece to this is little by little. Find that interesting? He says, do not be afraid. God is among you. And then he describes him as, God is a great and awesome God. God is going to drive them out. And then he uses that phrase, little by little. A little odd to you? God is not going to allow it to happen all at once. He's not going to have you walk into the promised land and just have one and declare it so and have all the enemies destroyed, and you're going to walk in and have the land and everything's going to be. He's not going to do it like that. It's going to be city by city, wall by wall, army by army, disaster by disaster, battle by battle. That's how it's going to happen. And it's on purpose. It actually says that God does it on purpose. He said, because if I did that, and he's just, in a very practical sense of the word, God says, if I wipe them all out, the animals would take over, the wild animals would take over the land, and you'd have more trouble on your hands than you'd had before. You're not ready for that. So we're going to do it this way, little by little, battle by battle, one at a time. You really aren't prepared to have the whole thing dropped in your lap today. Not today. Do you remember what it was like learning how to drive, or maybe you're teaching one of your kids to drive? Did you walk up to them on that first day and say, hey, let's go drive and here are the keys. We're going on the freeway. No. Because that would be a bad idea. I'm taking my daughter driving today. She's only been twice. We got ready. We're going to do the whole driver's license thing. In fact, this last week, I thought maybe her mom had taken her out driving. I go to pick her up from church, and I say, hey, you want to, I'm thinking about taking you over here, and we'll get on the back road, and I'll kind of let you drive home. And I look at her, and I go, has mom taken you driving? No. How many times have you driven? Twice. I said, we're not driving today like that. Oh, no. No. Little by little. We're not doing the freeway. We're going to go into the big church parking lot, empty big church parking lot, and we're going to just work our way around. We're going to use the stop signs. We're going to drive around. We're going to do a lot of that. We're going to go little by little because you're not ready for that. If God were to drop it into your life and give you victory and give you that job and give you that house and give you that, and just give it to you today, you would not be ready because you have to grow into it. You have to mature into it. You have to develop the disciplines and the character to handle what God is going to do in your life. It's called little by little. You're going to take new land. You're going to take new areas in your life, and he doesn't do it like that. He does it piece by piece, little by little. What battles are you facing in your life right now? Small, big? Maybe it's on the home front or the work front or the school front. Don't get overly excited about the victories or the defeats because it's all a part of the journey. It's all a part of the process. Make sure that you're continuing to make progress in the war as a whole and not on any individual little skirmish. FCBC is going to be moving forward little by little, battle by battle. It's the part of the natural transition process. There will be wins and losses, victories and defeats. The question is, are you willing, or are you taking new land? Are you following God? Are you being obedient? Are you accomplishing the mission that God has given you? Let's pray. Father, thank you for this morning and for an opportunity to be reminded that you are a God that goes with us. You are a God of that transition time. You're a God that helps us take new land and new territory, that you desire for us to move ahead. Father, it's my prayer that we would do that. God, that we would be aware of the realities that we face, and that we would remember well who you are, what you've done. God, may we be full of faith as we step out with you. In Christ's name we pray it. Amen. Where are you in your journey? Maybe you're in the middle of some transitions. How are things going? Maybe some setbacks, maybe some victories or some defeats, some wins, some losses, maybe some disappointment, fear. Maybe it is time for you to face reality, or make no treaties with the enemy, or remember well what God has done. Maybe it's time for you to acknowledge that, you know what, this is a step-by-step, little-by-little process for us. It may feel like you've been at war with God.